So, Tony, thanks for joining us today. One of
Yeah.
the things we were especially want to talk to our educators on and celebrate Higher Education Day, which is June 6th of every year. And so, first of all, I want you to tell us what do you find most rewarding to you as an educator in the accounting profession?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's having the opportunity to see the difference that I'm making. When I was serving as an auditor with Plant Moran, you're aware of the fact that conducting an audit of financial statements is benefiting someone, but it's often hard to tell who, and you don't usually run across those people. But when you're in a classroom environment or perhaps in your office and you're working with a student who maybe has been struggling a little bit, you see that light bulb moment. And that instant gratification is incredibly powerful for me.
That's got to be very rewarding to see a student, especially if they're struggling or maybe even helping them on their career path and what is when it comes to maybe sitting for the CPA exam or something like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the background I have as a CPA and having gone through that process makes a world of difference for being able to guide students down that path.
Are you familiar with the how the exam is going to be changing in the next few years?
I know I was on the call, and I think a handful of my colleagues were as well when the MICPA partnered with the Illinois State
Okay, good.
Society to discuss the new exam and the content and how we might want to revise our curriculum. So Dan Brickner, who's a faculty member at EMU, is on the curriculum committee. They're going to start thinking through how we might need to revise certain classes or perhaps even incorporate new classes into the curriculum to accommodate, the data analytics and the robotic process automation and
Yeah,
some of the technological advances that are going to be on the exam that haven't necessarily been on the exam to the scale that they will be now.
right. So you've been a member of MICPA for a long time, and you've been very involved, and we certainly appreciate that. And we wouldn't exist without our members and without our great volunteers. But how has being involved with MICPA helped support you in your role as an educator?
It's very difficult to get CPE when you're not in public accounting. You know, when I was with Plant Moran, I'd have hundreds and hundreds of hours of CPE every year just from the training opportunities they
Sure.
provide internally. So the MICPA has been a fantastic resource for me to be able to develop my skill set and have access to continuing professional education. So that's first and foremost for me. The second most pronounced opportunity that's been provided, I think, is the educators task force and being able to interact with my fellow colleagues from throughout the state, learn from what they're doing in the classroom, be able to get a better sense of what works in an online environment
Mhm.
versus an in-class environment, which is obviously something that we just experienced over the course of the last year. And I think having MICPA as a resource to be able to call in someone like Denise, to speak and provide information about student membership.
You're working with students that you're introducing them to accounting and hopefully to become CPAs. Do you see any suggestions or ideas of how we can do a better job, especially in underrepresented communities, to introduce the profession to them and encourage them to become CPAs?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't know how much of this is already being done, and it perhaps is, but going into high schools and speaking, and introducing that to them as early as possible. Outside of that, I think, once they are at EMU or whatever other higher education institution, you keep getting the message out there. Just continue to provide them with the resources that can allow them to see the benefits of a career as a CPA.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of the things we at MICPA want to continue to educate, inform, and connect through our high school leaders program, our new student accounting academy virtual learning program that we've introduced. So I totally agree that the earlier we can get in, the better, I think. So as being a licensed CPA, what do you see as the biggest benefit as an educator to being a licensed CPA?
The knowledge of having gone through the process fairly recently, being able to share some strategies for navigating the approach, in particular as it relates to the dynamic of the 150-hour program, being able to sit having completed the undergraduate requirements, even though they don't officially have a degree in hand, and then ultimately progressing into that 5th year. That knowledge, is wonderful to have and be able to convey to the students. And so when students don't see some letters after your name, they could perhaps think, what's this guy? What can he tell me? And so having the CPA, behind my name really goes a long way to allowing them to believe in me and what I have to say, about the material.